Hello, and welcome to the Other Illinois podcast. This is a podcast that's going to focus on events and issues that relate to people who live in Illinois outside of the Chicagoland area. For those of you who don't know, Illinois' population is split 60-40 between the Chicago area and the rest of the state. That's 40% is equivalent to 5 million people. There isn't a podcast that covers any of these areas, so that's where we decided to step in. My name is Russ Clark. And I'm here with Ryan Tebrugge, and we're going to discuss a couple things that have come up in Illinois politics and events today. So, Ryan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. So, we'll go to our first topic here. We are shooting this on Flag Day, June 14th. So, we're obviously in 2025. So today is the big No Kings protest that's going on around the country. And, this thing has been talked about and discussed for probably at least a week, if not 2 weeks. This morning, there were some early reports that came in. Apparently, two Democratic legislators in Minnesota were recently shot this morning. Nobody knows if they've passed or what's going on with their injuries. Apparently, was someone who was dressed as a police officer. They opened the door for the police officer impersonator, and then got shot. That's that's something that we definitely don't need in this country right now, and certainly somebody's thinking that this is going to have a major impact on the protests that are going on today. So,
if anything, that actually gives fuel to the fuel to the fire, so to speak. That gives them validation for their argument even further. But really, at the end of the day, that is a lone warrior that is representing them, not necessarily the individual or as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree. I disagree with Tim Walz's description of it. He called this person a cosplayer. If anyone knows anything about cosplay, you can't have any actual weapons with cosplay. Like when they're carrying around a sword, that's a cardboard or styrofoam sword. If they've got a gun, that's a plastic gun, and it's got the little orange cap on it that tells you that it's not a gun. This is an impersonator. It's a crime. It's definitely something that people should not be doing. And I was kind of surprised that anyone would be targeted in Minnesota. It seems like a pretty far left place that a lot of people would be jazzed about going out and protesting, the Trump administration and their immigration policies. So,
well, the biggest thing is, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, you have to respect other people's opinion. We may not agree with each other, but we have to respect each other regardless. And I don't think that is a good way to showcase that for either side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. So, I'm not going to the protest today, but, I certainly have mixed feelings about the Trump administration, largely because we went from having roughly 10 million, I'll call them migrants or illegal immigrants, whatever term you want to use. And then in 4 years, we added another 10 to 11 million more. So right now, if you compare us to where we were during the first Trump administration, we've doubled the size of undocumented people in this country. And you could say that in the original lowercase with the 10 million that were originally here, we largely knew who those people were. A fair number of them were paying taxes, owned businesses, things like that. I would say I don't think that that's necessarily the case for the other half that came in the past 4 years. We know that there was a lot of documents that were left on at the border in Mexico. Obviously, we've had a lot of more criminal elements come into the country in the past 4 years. So, I normally would be against rounding people up off the streets, but on the other hand, when you've doubled that population and you don't know who these people are, you don't know where they came from actually, and a lot of them have basically false claims on asylum to. They're not actually asylum seekers, they're economic migrants, which is an entirely different category.
So one of the things that I actually, when I attended a dinner, what they were talking about is that these aren't necessarily migrants only coming from Mexico. These may be migrants that are filtering through Mexico, but they're not Mexican descent. They could be from China. They could be from Russia. I mean, these are people who are fleeing communistic countries who kind of fear for their own life. And I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking because we have to give us. I feel like we should give asylum, but I think people need to be vetted when they're coming in, and that's the hard part because I think most people just want a better life coming into our country. That's kind of what we kind of promise to people. But the problem is we just don't really, like you said, we don't have a way to track them. We don't have a way to really vet them. So there needs to be a process in place to actually vet these people.
Right. Well, and in talking about the other Illinois, I can tell you from speaking with people in Champaign County, McLean County, here in Sangamon County, they're seeing people from all over. And one of the big things that has changed in the past few years is that a lot of these migrants are not native Spanish speakers. They are either Arabic, Farsi, which is Iran, if people don't know, and French. So they're actually, our court system is actually set up pretty well to have translators for Spanish speakers, but the other languages we certainly don't. So the courts have had some issues getting translators for people when they're being brought in. So it's the traditional thought process about who's an economic migrant needs to be you need to change your well, I would ask that people change their paradigms a little bit because it's not the traditional Mexican or person coming from Central or South America. We literally are seeing people from all over the world in the past 4 years.
And that's not actually specific to the United States. Actually, I just got back from Europe, Greece, and they said that they are having a huge impact. They're having a huge migrant population moving from China, coming into Greece, and they're establishing their roots because, for one, they're trying to again flee that kind of harshness of the government and of necessarily the totalitarianism, but they're also trying to reestablish themselves. Greece is more affordable. Greece is, especially the richer families, what they're finding is they actually are treated better in a lot of European countries. So I have to say that I find that interesting, but also that may be good for us to a certain extent, bringing in different cultures, not necessarily the extreme cultures, but the bringing in new ideas and bringing new businesses. So I do support that in the aspect of, at least if they're bringing their businesses with them or maybe their families with them, that can help support our local economy through business. So,
No, that'd be good. You know, fortunately, we haven't had any reports or issues of the protests getting violent or anything like that. It was interesting to see video coming in from Chicago last night. Not that we want to talk about that too much, but there was no reports of overturned cars or on fire or anything like that. I don't know that the media is going to be it. If there are those kinds of events, I don't know that the mainstream media is going to be posting those today, considering what happened in Los Angeles earlier this week. So,
well, the biggest thing is we got to protect the protesters, we got to protect the police, and because that's kind of fundamental to what we do as a country. Is that is our part of our First Amendment right? Regardless, again, if we agree with people or not, people have that right to protest. And I mean, look at the '60s, the '50s. They still have that right, and we have to protect that. But you can do nonviolent protests, and I do appreciate the fact that Chicago isn't being violent versus what's going on, like you said, in California and stuff like that. So we just have to be really careful. We have to give people the right to protest, but we also have to protect these people because there's people who may be counter protesting against these individuals. So we have to protect all parties because we have a responsibility to protect each other.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have yet to see any counter protests at any of these events. I'm not sure that the other side of things is actually interested in going down and facing off when it's their side that's in political power right now. You know, you've got a trifecta at the federal level for the Republicans, and the immigration issue is favorable for them right now. The most recent ballot poll has, which was done by CBS, has 54% support for um, deportation, and 34 is against. So now, obviously, that's going to vary from state to state. Your typical red states are going to be, I would say, outside of the Sun Belt, are going to be a little bit more pro, whereas you've got California, which is very, very much against. So um, it's a sticky situation. I think uh, the further you get in Illinois, the further south you go in Illinois, I think the you're more and more likely to see those protests get smaller and smaller, either on a percent of population size or just sheer numbers in general.
Well, here's what a lot of people, and I'm saying this as someone who's pro immigration with vetting, is look at some of the aspects of like JBL or what's also known as Excel. They hire a bunch of migrants. Illinois is an agricultural state, so if we can, you know, and even go back to California, California is an agriculture state. These are migrant workers. So, I mean, these are the people who are boots on the ground doing the day to day tasks. So I support that. But again, we need to vet them. Um, but really, in Illinois, we're one of the largest. We're the fifth largest agriculture community in the world when it comes to grain and meat. So why are we not? I guess it's kind of a double edged sword,
Yeah.
really.
So
Um,
speaking of that, I'm pretty familiar with the farm worker visa, having worked in some other areas where those people are in place. I don't know that the Trump administration has expanded that program.
as far as I know, he hasn't either.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know that Illinois actually has that many people under the farm visa program, anyways, because typically on the farm visa, those people are doing the hand picking, so to speak. If you're picking raspberries, picking strawberries, picking beans, that's where the vast majority of the farm visas are going. Illinois is corn and soy country, which is all heavy machinery and driving large semi trucks to the grain elevator. So I don't know that there's too many farm visa workers here in the rest of Illinois.
Well, actually, Kewanee, Illinois, is one of the largest. I think is the largest pork producer in the world. Actually,
Okay.
Kewanee, Illinois, Henry County. So, I mean, you do have migrant workers here, but some of these migrant workers and people traditionally think of like Hispanic, Mexican people coming in, but a lot of the population actually I thought was really interesting, especially um, as a public servant. One of the things that I have learned is a lot of them are student visas. So you have people coming from Togo, you have people coming from Nigeria, you have people coming from a lot of your African countries because of our education system offers a lot for them. And also you have Beardstown. So I mean you have those people who actively do actually, a lot of them are student visas, a lot of them are work visas, but they're doing it the proper way. And that's what I think is important. But we still have to respect these people regardless of where they come from.
All right. You feel like moving on to the next topic? The next topic's kind of juicy.
Sure.
It's not as juicy as our last topic, but it's kind of juicy. So, those of you who don't live in Illinois or who have been living in Illinois and under a rock, former Speaker Mike Madigan was sentenced today for federal corruption charges related to a number of bribes, including bribing AT&T, receiving bribes from AT&T and ComEd. ComEd was really the ComEd piece was really the one that took him down. The CEO and two higher ups at ComEd also pled guilty to bribery charges, and once they were convicted, that put a heavy burden on Mike Madigan's defense team to prove that he did not accept bribes from the Commonwealth Edison up in Chicago. Now, the reason that we're talking about this is that former Speaker Madigan basically ran the state for the past 40 years when he was Speaker, starting with his first term, I think was in 81 or 83. I don't remember. I think it was 83 because he took the Speaker gavel from George Ryan, who went on to be Secretary of State and later governor, and was also convicted of corruption charges. So Mike Madigan, who's 83, got 7.5 years and a $2.5 million fine. The federal prosecutor was asking for 12 years. And that level of fine. So, given his age, I would expect him to be remitted to the federal prison in Pensacola, Florida. If you're familiar with that prison, it tends to be the nicest federal prison. Which, actually, reading a book on somebody who spent some time there for bookmaking charges. The nice is a operative term. The Pensacola Federal Prison is right next to the Pensacola Naval Air Station, so you get jet noises. You get constant jet noise almost 24/7, and it's in an old Army barracks, so no air conditioning, minimal facilities, but it sounds like as long as you are polite, they say yes, no, thank you, excuse me, please. Just like in kindergarten, you're not going to get beat up. So,
prison guard, I have to say that I don't think any prison is quote unquote nice, but there's certain tones of each prison and what you incarcerate. Different prisons have different populations, so I think he'll be treated well. It's white collar crime, so white collar crime is treated very differently in this country.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that a little bit. I'm just drawing a blank on the book that I read on this. And the guy that went to prison for bookmaking, he was actually the bookmaking charges were pretty stretched. Basically, this gentleman got on the wrong side of the FBI, and he had an FBI agent that basically was Inspector Javert on him, and always trying to come up with different charges. The guy lived in Vegas, so his money was making legitimate bets on sports. He was always making bets in Vegas, but this guy just had it in his brain or this federal agent had it in his brain that this gentleman was accepting bets rather than placing bets. So that's why he wound up eventually going to federal prison. Phil Mickelson was the one that turned state's evidence, and he says, it winds up being a he says type thing, and unfortunately the jury believed Phil. So, and I obviously am on the other side of that. I don't think that if you're placing $2 to $3 million worth of bets on the Super Bowl every year, you're probably not making a book on that. You've got your own stockpile of cash.
I would hope so, anyways. I mean, I'm not sitting on $2 and $3 million. I mean, some people, I'm not.
Yeah. So interesting to see that the speaker got $2.5 million in fines. For those of you who don't know, Mike Madigan is a property tax attorney. So here in Illinois, if you don't like your property taxes, you hire a property tax attorney, and they will go object to your property tax assessment. And if they're successful, then your property tax attorney gets a third of whatever you get back. So very, very successful property tax attorney, obviously because he's Mr. Speaker, and he knows the Cook County assessor very well, who's also a Democrat. And they owe him some kind of allegiance because Mike Madigan also was the chair of the Illinois Democratic Party while he was in power. So pretty interesting. It's been a long, long diatribe and tale of Mike Madigan.
Well, and it just goes to show to the corruption. We've had how many governors go to prison, how many senators go to prison, how many secretary of states go to prison. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless, fraud is unacceptable and corruption is unacceptable. I mean, and any party that says we didn't do it or we're not responsible, we have to hold those people responsible. And I mean, really, I mean, granted, he's 83, but 7 years. I mean, that that to a certain extent, that seems very little compared to some of the stuff that he did.
Well, you're going to remember though. I mean, life expectancy in the United States is what, 78. So he's already 5 years over.
Mhm.
You're getting 7.5. So if you live it out, and remember, he's not getting special food. Like, and because during COVID, this is the high life that Speaker Madigan had. So during COVID, while they were meeting here in Springfield, he had meals catered in from Chicago for the legislators. So they were driving 3.5 hours each way to bring food that the speaker wanted. So he's having, and that was all on the taxpayer's dime.
I guess where I was
So,
going at is 7.5 years is very little. I was expecting more.
well, they asked 12, so half was 6.
So,
So,
well, and then there's, I mean, it falls within the sentencing guidelines. So, I mean,
oh yeah,
that's really, I guess not saying that we should make a example of him, but also at the same time, he knew what he was doing. He made millions of dollars off the taxpayers. He made millions of dollars off of everyone. And it's kind of sad because at the end of the day, someone needs to be held responsible, and he is being held responsible. But is that fair? Meaning, maybe he should have got more.
I see what you're saying. So,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, he did is defrauded the public. He broke the law. He should be held responsible for that. And I mean, he's gotten held responsible by a guilty conviction, but at the same time, if he was 20 years younger, would he have gotten the 12?
yeah, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. I kind of want to see that. I don't want to see the video of the first bologna sandwich he has to eat for lunch. I want
Now
to see the
he'll get
video
a
of
he'll
the
get it smuggled in.
45th bologna sandwich he has to eat for lunch.
He'll get it smuggled in. Come on.
45th is the one that I really want to see, because I you could choke down a bologna sandwich or two. I mean, I can't stand bologna at all, but if that's what I get for lunch, I'm probably going to be hungry enough to eat it, particularly when there's nothing else around.
He'll find a way to get smuggled in. Come on now.
Well, yeah, they do. They do get commissary in federal prison, but
Yes.
they want to know the source of the funds. So, obviously his $2.5 million fine. Um, I don't know how much of a, because he was using his campaign funds to pay for his defense, which is legal under Illinois law. You could, if he was a federal official, he couldn't do that. But Illinois law allows you to do that. So it'll be interesting to see if federal law allows your campaign fund to provide you commissary dollars in prison.
That'd be
And if that $2.5 million fine actually comes out of his kick, or if it's the campaign contributions. So,
but here's the double edged sword to that. Even and like I said, I'm a public employee, so I look at things differently to this extent. He's still getting paid. We're the taxpayers, our tax dollars, even though he defrauded the state government. Now he's defrauding to a certain extent the federal government because he's still now getting paid to sit in federal prison. So it's just that's what our
he
tax
doesn't
dollars.
get paid. He didn't. No, 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 no.
Oh, he's paying for this?
No. You get, if you are. So, are you talking about his pension?
No, I'm talking about how our tax dollars are still paying for him to sit in prison. So
Oh. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's the federal government now. So I mean,
at least he's not burning the state of Illinois anymore.
right. Well, it's a much bigger pot. It's a much bigger pot. First
Yes.
of all, second of all, I would say they're probably it's a lot worse treatment than he would have gotten in state prison, because I think there would be ways to set a Goodfellas situation. I don't know if you remember that or not, where
Yep.
the
Yep.
guys had their own.
Yep.
They had their own. There was a print. There was Gen Pop, and then there was main guys, and the
Yep.
main guys, they had all sorts of stuff. But um, so I don't see with it being federal prison. I don't see Goodfellas showing up for him. Yeah, particularly under this administration, that's for sure.
Yep. That's true.
Um,
But we also know that money walks and BS talk, or
oh
money.
no, there's
So money talks.
the money does not matter in Pensacola because the property developer Chrisley.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, when he got to prison, that's where he went was Pensacola, and apparently, he was his stereotypical rude ass, and and
I can tell you, they'll check that.
Yeah. I was like going,
prisoners will check that attitude.
yeah, and that's I just treat it like kindergarten. You say yes, no, please, thank you.
And I'm not talking about the guards are the problem sometimes.
Oh no.
Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not.
The book that I was reading was the book that I was reading about Pensacola. It sounded like the people that you needed to watch were your fellow inmates more than the prison itself. They were, the guards. It sounded like the guards didn't want to come talk to you because then that meant that they had to leave the air conditioning and come with no air conditioning, in the panhandle of Florida, which I was like, yeah, I could see that.
That can get pretty warm. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, that just goes to show Illinois politics, and I think that that's something we need to, even on a federal level. I'm sure he just happened to get caught. I'm sure there's many people doing other things that he just happened to get caught. So at the end of the day, we need to as a public servant, we need to hold people accountable, and we need, regardless of party or regardless of, you commit a crime, you need to be held accountable for that. And
to borrow from another movie, Casino, no records, Artie, no records. That was actually the downfall in this case. You had one of his chief of staffs basically keeping records on payments as far as what ComEd was paying, what AT&T was paying, no-show jobs, and once that former chief of staff went to prison for sexual harassment, that's when everything started rolling downhill for former Speaker Madigan. So
I even heard rumors that he never even kept a cell phone because he didn't want anything tracked that he did. So.
That's what I've heard too. This is that he borrowed. For those of you who don't know, Chicago, the Chicago mob was the mob that was in Casino, the movie, and they were notorious for, not having cell phone calls or anything like that. Although I think cell phones were still fairly brand new technology back in the 80s when they were actually running a couple of casinos out of Vegas. So,
well, this just goes to show, just be careful what you do and what you put out there, because even as a citizen, you need to be careful.
I come away from this saying, I came away from this like Jesse White. Jesse White's attitude on bribes was don't take bribes, or if you do, make sure you take enough to pay the lawyers. And in this case, since everybody else was still contributing to Mike Madigan's campaign accounts, even during the lead up to the trial. I don't know if he actually got any checks during the trial, but in the lead up to the trial, he was still getting campaign money and campaign donations from people.
Wow. That just goes to show you, for one, power has influence, but it also, we need to look into that, because that just, I'm sorry, we need to look into that. One of the things that has always been said is follow the money. Where does where's the money going? I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
just at the end of the day, just be careful what you do. We have a responsibility to the public, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
It's tax dollars that are funding us, paying our salaries, so we have to be careful what we do.
All right. Well, topic 3 is along those same lines, but a bit different. So I titled it "Sex and Loathing in Jersey." Jersey County Treasurer Katie Abbey recently pleaded guilty to stealing $58,000 from Jersey County. She was also having an affair with neighboring Madison County Treasurer Chris Slisser, according to her husband. When he found out 3 weeks ago, he tried tracking down the couple at the county administration buildings and Slisser's home. Abbey, when indicted earlier in May, had pled not guilty, but changed her plea on Wednesday in a current hearing. So, in true Illinois fashion, she received a sentence of 45 days of house arrest and 30 months of probation for a Class 1 felony, as well as for full restitution of the $58,000 that she stole. So this kind of gives an example of what I'm talking about, the difference between a federal charge and a state charge. As you can see, state charge with with embezzlement funds, yeah, it's a slap on the wrist. Although, to be quite honest, it's 45 days of house arrest, and so that means it's 45 days of being stuck in a house with your husband who knows that you've been cheating on him with another elected official.
Well, take that a step further, though. I mean, at that point, your reputation is burned too. So even in your community, so that people in your community know that you cheated. Now your husband knows you cheated.
Who's got the worst self? Mike Madigan or Stacey? Who's the worst self?
Well, I don't know who Madigan's cellmate is, so I can't. But
okay. The point taken there. But
and I can also tell you, prison's a lot more fun, a lot less fun.
Right. Well, we know the Madigan's cellmate's going to be a guy.
That's true.
We do know that. So,
which could be good for him or bad for him.
So here's the interesting thing, and this is where you have to just love Illinois' corruption from time to time. So that $58,000 was stolen between August of 2023 and roughly August of 2024. Now, Chris Slisser, so Katie Abbey did not have a primary challenge during that time, but Chris Slisser did. So it'd be interesting to see if some of that embezzled money went into Slisser's campaign accounts, and because just why would you be stealing $58,000 worth of cash when
you need a nice boat or two or three?
If she had a nice boat, would the husband care?
I guess my question is really, what was the money? I agree with you. What was the money spent on, for one? But at the end of the day,
there's some guys. There's guys out there that would be like, I get a boat, and where's all this money coming from? I don't care. I got a boat. I definitely know a guy or two that's like that. So
I guess at the end of the day, it like you said, it shows Illinois politics, and I think that's and the sad thing is, because you have this one instance, or you have your Madigans, but there is good politicians out there. There are people who are honest, and that the hard part is that it does paint people with a broad stroke, and there is very good politicians out there who are doing what they can for the community, trying to do what's the best. So that's the sad thing is you put that public trust, and some people break that public trust, and you have people who follow that public trust, and it's it's sad because I mean, outside of Chicago, we always say Chicago's corrupt, and now we're showing downstate's corrupt too. And I think that's the saddest part of it is we always try to break our part upon the Chicago machine that it is versus we're downstate, we're good people, and I don't even think every politician in Chicago is a bad person. For the record, I don't want them to think that, but it's just sad because that it breaks the public
Well, my
trust.
issue with it is that I mean, this is so. I don't know how familiar you are with Jersey County, but Jersey County is a lot of farms. It's not heavily populated. It's not like Calhoun County, which is further to the west of it. But this is uh, I think they do have some peaches in Jersey County because it's right across the river from Calhoun. Um, but 58,000 in a county that size is somewhat substantial for them. Yeah, whereas if we're talking larger counties or even here in Central Illinois, Champaign County or McLean or Peoria County, it's a little easier to hide that kind of funds. So I think she got caught rather relatively quickly. Um, Thankfully, to the Illinois State Police investigation, and I think that's actually a good thing that we've changed in the past few years. Is that the Illinois State Police takes a firmer investigation in these matters because uh, in years prior it's been the county sheriff, and if you have enough friends in the county sheriff's department, then they start looking the other way, and you continue to do what you do. So, but yeah, it does paint a bad brush. But on the other hand, sex, stolen funds,
It's like
angry
a
husband.
satire.
I
It
mean,
sounds like a movie.
this has sunshine written all
Let's make a movie of it.
over it. I don't know if there's enough for a movie, but the bridges of Madison County too.
You're right around the corner from Madison County, so why not, right?
That's right.
I
Well, it's yeah.
but at the end of the day, still, I mean, we'll take a step back from the money. I mean, like you said, it's the family issues, it's everything like that too. So, I mean, that's regardless of, it's a double edged sword because you feel bad for the family because now their reputation is burned too, but also it's at least she was being held accountable. So it's a double edged sword. You try to, you got to look at it from different angles, and you know, did she? I don't know. Did she ever try to justify at least why she did it?
The article didn't say, although my feeling is that because she pled not guilty initially, and then the husband finds out about the affair roughly maybe 4 or 5 days after she gets arraigned. So my suspicion, and it's pure conjecture, I don't know, is that the reason that she pled guilty was because he was going to turn state's evidence. So, for those of you who don't know, you can't force a spouse to testify against their spouse. That's no bueno. But if they want to, they sure as hell can.
Right.
And I think that's probably what happened it was that he found out where the money was going, and he had his suspicions. Early on, there was that accusation that he had some suspicions due to their activities
Well, we also know if you take a
before. But
plea, we also know if you take a plea, you're typically
well, that's true. It is a plea, but on the other hand, when you do an investigation, and once the arraignment happens, that that state's attorney can show you things that were the result of the investigation.
yeah. All
And
that evidence becomes
he's
public information.
well, yeah, if he looked at all that stuff and he puts two and two together with a couple dates and a couple of expenditures, things like that, where are they going? Who's doing what?
Well,
Yeah, he. That's what I'm thinking. This is that this is
well, as we know too,
there.
is if it goes to trial,
In my opinion, the juice is not done being squeezed yet. Or the orange is not done being squeezed here.
well, as we
I
know,
think they're
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. As we know,
go.
though, once that becomes a trial, so to speak, all that information becomes public too. So evidence becomes public, and I like you said, I could see that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And here's the thing: she got
I've
caught,
done
and the other guy got caught. Who else is going to get implicated? I mean,
well. Well, there's nothing's happened to Treasurer Slusser right now. He's still in office and just sitting in Madison County. Now, how long that is now? If it and again that's pure conjecture on my part. I don't know if it went into his campaign accounts or not. But certainly if it did, then yeah, he's looking at corruption charges too. Um, but then he's got to claim that he didn't know it was coming out of Jersey County's treasury. So, which again,
how do you not know when you're the treasurer?
no.
But then again, there's times things just go missing. I mean, look at our. I mean, if we're going to take this to a broader range, look at the Pentagon. They had like what billions of dollars, just they can't find. So,
Oh, yeah.
so
Yeah.
so
No. I think you'd be better off if you were going to pull what the Pentagon pulled. I mean, wouldn't you be buying silver bars or gold bars and then leaving them out in a mailbox somewhere, or losing them, or I mean that
just got dropped off somewhere, and we can know what happened to him. We accidentally left the key unlocked. We accidentally left the keys in the car, and
you. Yeah, I'm sure you've lost a couple gold bars in your day.
Yeah, couple.
Who does?
Just a few.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's all. That's all I had. Ryan, you got anything?
Not at the moment. No, I think we'll find more interesting stories coming up because it's like you said, it's Illinois, so we'll find something else interesting coming up.
That's true. All right. So I hope you all join in. Please like and subscribe to the channel. We're a brand new podcast. If you got some stories to tell or things that are going on in the other part of Illinois, please put them in the comments, and we'll do an investigation, I guess. And next week we'll be discussing the budget and the porch tax that was proposed and defeated, but still may rise again. So,
also, tell
Ryan,
us,
hey,
tell
thanks for
us
coming
about
on
things
the
that are going
podcast.
in your community. If you got something, not necessarily, we don't always want to focus on bad. If you got something good going on in your community too, don't be afraid to bring those up as well.
All right, awesome. All right, hey, thanks, like and subscribe, and that's it.